Hello, I am Suzanne Hannafin with Acumen Executive Search. And for those who have not seen our Hiring for Good podcast, Hiring for Good is about best practices in leadership. It is lessons learned, what to do, what not to do. And this is our segment called Profiles in Leadership, where we ask our business partners to join in into this discussion about leadership. Today, I'm so happy to have Zhou Fang with us. Hi there, Zhou.
Hi, Suzanne. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I am too. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Zhou, and then I'll turn it over to her to continue on with the conversation. But Zhou is a dedicated leader in DEI and is a consultant who focuses on intersectionality as well as interconnections. She approaches her projects through curiosity, empathy, and compassion. Zhou truly embodies DEI and how lived experiences can be beneficial to all. Zhou, you made this transition from corporate life to your own consultancy. Share with us your background and the journey of making this shift.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'll try to create a shorter version. First and foremost, I'm an immigrant from China. So I moved to the United States as an international student. And then I finished my graduation, kind of a graduate degree, and then moved into corporate, like work. I was on a work visa for 10 plus years and was working as a partnership, a business development, and communications person before I moved into kind of consulting and kind of independent business practice as, like you said, a DEI practitioner as well as a leadership consultant. So what really moved me into the consulting space is when I was working as an international worker, and I was really dependent on a sponsor. And because of that interesting relationship, I felt there was a lot of things missing from how we treat our workers, how we treat our teammates, how we help people grow, and how to create and like a diverse and inclusive and equitable workplace. And I think a lot of that can be traced back on leadership. What kind of leadership we have really has a heavy impact on what kind of a team we're going to have, which I think is really relevant to your hiring for good project. So yeah, basically, I really wanted to make an impact on team building, on leadership, and on people and culture. And that's why I made the transition.
No, and I think it's wonderful. And not only do you work with these organizations and help shape who they are, but you too also have a podcast.
I
And
do.
you put out so much information that I have to say, I get hundreds of emails every day, but I read yours because they're
Oh,
so good.
thank
And
you.
and it makes us kind of look at the world and look at employment differently. So, coming from your own core set of values, because I think that's where we all start from.
Mhm,
We approach the world through our values and our beliefs.
mhm.
How has, what kind of formative events or mentors that you've had that help shape your career path?
That's a really good question. I think every interaction I have with people, I try to treat them as an opportunity to learn. So I want to say instead of one or two particular people as a mentor or mentors, I think every single person is a situational mentor to me. And some of them had a more significant impact. Some of them have more like subtle impact. but I do think every opportunity we have talking with people is one opportunity for mentorship. So that's more kind of like in a general sense. And I think when it really comes to shaping my own kind of leadership style or my values or how I conduct my business, a lot of it actually comes from the experiences I didn't have as a worker. So
Yeah, talk to me about that. Not the experiences you had, but the experiences you didn't have.
yeah,
Okay.
it's like, say, okay, for example, as a worker, say I'm in a situation where there was microaggression or unconscious bias, right? A lot of us had that experience. So what do we expect? We will expect our coworkers, our colleagues, or our managers, or our leadership, or HR, anyone in the company or team will be like, hey, this is not fair, or what happened is wrong, or not right. We should fix it, or we should take care of our worker, right? That's what you would hope to happen. And for me, it's the things that didn't happen. For example, no one stood up for me, or no one said, oh, yeah, we should do something to correct this. So it's sort of like the unmet expectation really shaped like my understanding of what leadership should look like. It's like, oh, if someday I became a leader, I wouldn't do this. If someday I became a leader, I would do this instead. I would treat my people well. I would be thoughtful. I would be inclusive. So it's the experience that I didn't have and wish I had that kind of shaped me and my values, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes total sense. And again, I think a lot of these learnings are hindsight. That as we grow and mature, you say, wow, I can't believe this wasn't remedied when this happened. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give either a new manager or new
Mm.
leader versus a seasoned leader?
Yeah. So I think empathy is really important. Whether or not you are a new leader or seasoned leader, imagine what would you have done or how would you like to be treated if you were in these colleagues or in these employees' shoes. I think really use our empathy and to use our kind of basic understanding of everyone wants to be treated with goodwill. Everyone wants to be treated with fairness and equitable practice and inclusive practice. And I think that's a really good starting point. So for new leaders, I will say it's really important to pay attention to your past, like when you were a contributor or when you were a worker. What were the things you noticed that this could be better? Pay attention to that and maybe reflect on that and try to learn these kind of new skills in your position as a new manager. So that comes to career development. So it's also important for senior leaders to take notes, like how are we going to help our new leaders grow and develop their leadership skills? And I think for seasoned leaders, again, I think reflection is really important. And also keeping up with what's happening right now in the space, because we are all lifetime learners. And there are a lot of things we learned from the past. Some of them may not be as useful anymore, but there are always new things coming up that's worth noticing. And there is also practices in the past that were considered okay, but maybe in today's world, not appropriate anymore. So we also need to unlearn some of those old habits or knowledge as a seasoned leader. So it's in a way, it's very, very nuanced because we are constantly learning and unlearning at the same time. So it takes a lot of like self-awareness and reflection when we try to just continue to grow as a leader.
Oh, absolutely. If we're not learning and growing, what are we doing? You
I
know?
know, I know.
Well, and it's funny because DEI has come such a long way from this concept, and I'll age myself, of what was the term? Being colorblind.
Mm,
Don't see it. Today, we're looking at it very differently, of saying these lived experiences actually bring value.
mhm.
And so kind of give us just a top level about DEI today, because I think we all want to learn it.
Yeah, I think DEI today is at a very interesting place. Um, in my opinion, I think DEI shouldn't be a standalone thing. DEI really should be part of the culture, should be our HR practice, should be in our leadership practice. It should be in a company strategic plan. Like in a year, what's our team gonna be look like? In 3 years, in 5 years, we should all progress that way. And diversity, equity, and inclusion should always be part of that. So that's one thing. And I think another thing about DEI is it's being weaponized very much these days in our very kind of polarized and divisive society these days, which is really unfortunate. I think that is a reason for me to I started to always spell out diversity, equity, and inclusion instead of saying just DEI. Because when you just say DEI, people immediately think about identity politics or what is your agenda, right? It's being seen as this secret weapon or this um, thing that people can manipulate or leverage when it comes to policy setting or personal agenda, which is really, really unfortunate. And I think it's a misuse of DEI. But the thing is, once people have that programmed, it's really hard to get rid of. So to help me navigate the landscape, I've been spelling out diversity, equity, and inclusion and say, these combined all together should be part of your leadership, should be part of your strategy, and should be part of your corporate culture. So I think the way I see DEI these days really goes back to the foundation is people and culture, what people want, what people need. How do we take care of our employees and how do we help shape a corporate culture and by extension, the culture of our society where everyone feel included and feel safe and kind of have enough space to grow and to thrive. So I think when we first started to talk about DEI, of course, it's because we have and we will always have the needs of talking about race, talk about sex, talk about gender, all that. Those needs don't go away. And as things progress, we can also kind of like see, okay, now people have been learning about, racism, sexism, and all those isms and discriminations. Now, let's bring our attention back to the fundamental needs of people. It's sort of like in order to go from A to B, sometimes you have to go a longer route. You have to do your research. You have to go to maybe D first. Maybe you have to go to Z first in order to get to B. But ultimately the goal is B, which is taking care of people. Like you said, hiring for good. So that is sort of like, I think DEI is and was a way of getting to doing good as a leader. And now I think it's time to integrate it into leadership, just in general, because it's a mindset, it's not just a thing.
Right. And I think that And this is my opinion,
Mm,
that it doesn't matter the size of an organization. Behavior and culture is a top down.
mhm,
And if the leaders don't embrace it as a part of our organization and our infrastructure, but look at it as a thing that we need to do,
mhm.
real change will not happen.
I agree.
That it really does start with that leader saying, no, this is, yeah, again, they're the ones who set the tone of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Exactly.
You get brought into organizations, is it from the leader or more from the human resources culture piece?
That's an excellent question. It's both. I think I don't have any preference. I think when it's the people and culture department bring me in because they work with their workers very closely, they sort of know what people need. That's the kind of the upside of, when the request is coming from people and culture. The downside is sometimes there's a disconnect between needs and budget. So like as a practitioner, I also need to charge for my worth, right? Like we are all in this world where we need to function, where we need to do good. We also have bills to pay. So as a business, I am trying to be helpful. At the same time, I also need to like, hey, do you respect my worth? If you do, this is my very transparent kind of a fee structure. So what happens oftentimes is the people of culture department would come in and say, this is our needs and what we can do and what's your fee structure. And I will give it to them and they will be coming back and say, we don't have the money. So the upside and the downside is one, the people and culture department really understands people's needs. At the same time, sometimes they struggle with the budget. And with the leadership, the good thing really is they already know a number they have. So they'll be like, this is how much we can afford. And can you tell me what we can do with this budget? And they sort of also know what is needed. And sometimes because they don't interact with their employees on a day-to-day basis, sometimes there could be a little kind of disconnect or misalignment when it comes to what services they are looking for their team. So there is pros and cons when requests are coming from people and culture or leadership. But I will say, and I agree with you, Suzanne, I think change is coming from top down. When there is leadership buy-in, when there is commitment from the leadership, it just makes our life so much easier for the leadership, for the team, like for workers, and for practitioners like myself, so that we can work together, kind of like have a understanding, hey, this is what we're trying to do together. We're all trying to do better. And when there is leadership buy-in, there's a lot of like, yes, let's do this and let's go. So again, so there are kind of upside and downside when the request is coming from different departments. But I do agree when there is leadership buy-in, it's a really good thing.
Absolutely. And you've been doing this now for a couple of years as
Yeah,
specific,
year number 3. Yeah.
year number 3. What are you really proud of? What kind of you go, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah. I'm proud of the, of course, when clients say, or partners say, that was great, we really appreciate it. Of course, that feels good. And I think what feels better is when I was able to say, hey, I didn't, or when someone tell me, I did not know that at all. Or when someone say, that was a different perspective and you explained that really well to me. It was when I was able to have an impact on people's mindset and down the road, hopefully on their day-to-day behavior as well. It was that sort of like a genuine feedback when people say, you really taught us something.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that's what I feel really proud of. And I'm also proud of, talking about the cliche stuff is, as an immigrant woman from China, moved to the US 14 years ago and now have my own practice that I am proud of.
And
Um,
it should be, absolutely. What an accomplishment, all the way. So let's talk about that. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
that is so hard. My 20-year self. Gosh. I will say, gosh, if I could, yeah, it's a really hard question. I want to say, to 20-year-old Zhou that you have time. Um, you have time to explore, you have time to ponder, you have time to get lost sometimes, and you have time to really think about what you want in this life. And you have time to make mistakes and correct them. And you have time to see the world, and you have time to learn from other people you are going to meet who you don't really know who they are yet. And you have time to always become a better version of yourself. I think that's the advice I'll give myself.
Well, and I think we can all aspire to that.
Yeah.
It's again reflecting and really listening to others. And I tend to sometimes bully my way in, and here's my opinions, here's this.
Listen to me. But we should be able to do that, like listen to us. We have a lot to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So who is your ideal client? Because again, we're here to also kind of highlight you as a business partner.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. My ideal partner or client will be someone who either is in leadership position or aspire to be a leader. It could be for business, it could be for a nonprofit, it could be just simply a community leader. Whoever sees themselves as a leader in their life for their community, for their people, and is willing and open to learn about what is intersectionality, what does a intersectional leader look like, and how can we incorporate curiosity, compassion, and empathy into our leadership practice. Those are the folks I would really love to work with.
Yeah. And then my last question, Joe, is that this podcast is hiring for good.
Hmm.
What does hiring for good mean to you?
That's a really good question. I thought about that when I came across your podcast before. Like, what is good, So I think a couple of things came to my mind hiring for good. One is that hiring for good is doing the right thing and taking care of our team members. And also hiring for good means treating people with decency, fairness, and kindness. And also, I want to say, in today's HR practice and leadership, we don't stop at hiring. We go beyond hiring. We go into career development. We go into employee retention. So I think hiring for good to me also means that we're not stopping at hiring again, but rather hiring and retaining good people and helping folks grow and helping them thrive.
I love that. Well, I tell you, Joe, I do appreciate your time. All of Joe's contact information will be at the bottom of this and at the end of this recording. But anything else you'd like to add, Joe?
Hmm. Anything else I would like to add? Yeah, just find me on LinkedIn and website and email. And I would really like to say, um, in today's world, leadership means so much. Like it's no longer the equivalent of a boss or a business owner, right? Like a leader really can be anyone. It can be, you have a basketball team and you are the organizer, you are the leader of the team, or you are in your neighborhood and you try to bring people together and have a party, and you are the leader in that sense. Or you really care about the climate and you are trying to bring your neighborhood kind of association together and do something good for the environment. You're a leader. So I think when we talk about leadership and who are our leaders, I think we should all feel invited to kind of broaden our understanding of leadership and leaders in general.
I love it. I agree. Well, perfect, Zhou. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. Again, contact Zhou. All of her information will be below. And yeah, don't forget to reach out to Acumen also. All
Yes.
right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Suzanne.